Hey kitchen people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alyssa. I am the owner and creator of the Floral Apron blog, and today I am here to show you how to make cherry almond cupcakes. These cupcakes have a two-toned buttercream swirl, one that is cherry flavored, one that is almond flavored. They are packed to the brim with canned and fresh cherries with a cherry reduction syrup. I'm telling you, so many good flavors going on in here, but I promise it's easy, you can do it. I cannot wait for you to make them with me. Let's get started. I have 1 can of pitted dark sweet cherries in heavy syrup. Heavy syrup is important because we are going to use that to make part of the buttercream. So drain your cherries into a small saucepan. Okay. We're gonna bring this to a simmer and we're gonna let it cook for about 15 to 20 minutes. I turn mine up at the beginning, and then once I can hear it start to simmer, I turn it down to low. I have 10 fresh cherries here, which I know does not sound like a lot, but trust me, it makes a difference. I am cutting them in half, just kind of rolling the cherry while my knife stays in the center. And then I twist them open, kind of like an Oreo. And then I divide each of these halves into quarters. So I'm gonna put them in this container. Set that aside and dig my pits out. You can use a cherry pitter. If I'm already chopping them, using a cherry pitter really doesn't save me a whole lot of time. And this way I really get to know my cherries. Okay, now that we've got that, do the same to this side. Cut each half into quarters. And I'm gonna take them and put the rest of them into this container. And I can tell that my liquid is simmering, so I'm gonna turn it down to low. Gonna give it one quick swirl, just to equalize the temperature, and then put it back on and let it continue cooking while you prep the batter. And I still have cherry stained hands because I am going to rinse off my cherries and then cut them, so there's no reason for me to wash these. I have learned, just keep going. So put these into a, unless you have to get into your white cabinet. Okay, we're safe. So I put these directly onto the colander and then bring them over to the sink. Now that I have these rinsed off, I'm gonna chop them roughly into bite-sized pieces. And it doesn't really matter as much. These are a lot softer. You can't tell as much if you get a larger piece. These look roughly chopped. There are some pieces that are larger than others, and we want some variety. Take a paper towel or cheesecloth and squeeze some of this liquid out. We don't want all of it in the cupcakes because it will tint the batter red, and we want a cherry almond cupcake, not just a cherry cupcake. Probably will need one more for good measure. I'm not getting all the liquid out, I'm just getting enough that easily comes off when I apply pressure. Then transfer these into your bowl. Now we get on to the cupcake batter part. I have 1 stick of butter. Throw it in here. Use the edge of the beater to get the remnants of the butter off. Add in your sugar. Beat until light and fluffy. I'm gonna scrape down the edges. You want this to be really light and fluffy, so anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes until it looks very pale yellow. Scrape down once more if needed. This is getting to where I want it, but it's not quite there yet. So while this is going, I'm gonna crack my 2 eggs into my almond milk so that way I can mix that together and pour it in one fluid motion. This is what we want. It looks like a very pale yellow. There's a lot more air beaten into this. I can hear that my syrup is simmering again, so I'm gonna give that a quick swirl. Just don't forget about it when it's on the burner because you can reduce it down a little bit too much. It is recoverable, just keep an eye on it. I'm gonna add in our extracts. So I have a little bit of vanilla, and I'm running low on my vanilla, and my almond extract. Then we will add in 1/3 of our flour mixture. This has baking powder and salt mixed into it already. We'll be in a third of the flour mixture, half of the milk mixture, and then we'll add in another third of this, and then the last half of this, and then the last third of this. So just make sure that you incorporate it all at one time instead of having it be too liquidy and then having it be clumpy. It works better this way, I promise. Still have quite a bit of butter on this, so I'm going to scrape down the edges and get what I have on my spatula off. Make sure the little flour gang that hangs out on top hangs down. This is already looking really well mixed. We are going to do our best to not overmix this. Not taking any chances. Again, barely incorporate. Done. Scrape off your beater. Oh, so sad. Do you see it? Now that we have our batter all mixed together, I'm gonna add in both sets of cherries. And we are folding these in very lightly. Again, we don't want to overmix, so we are simply mixing until they look like they are well represented. I go around the edges of the bowl and then straight down the middle. Edges of the bowl, straight down the middle. And I keep doing that until it looks like these are all incorporated. And they are now all incorporated. Remember to preheat your oven. So I'm gonna take my trusty ice cream scoop, fill it up to the top, and fill each one with about 1 scoop. You can use just the bowl and kind of guide in, but with these cherries it makes it kind of difficult because they are so chunky. These are going to be really full cupcakes. If I had another cupcake tin, I would split this into 14 cupcakes, but I only have room for 12, so I make big cupcakes. Which everyone likes those, it's fine. Once I get down towards the bottom, I scrape the sides of the bowl to collect all of it into one section at the bottom, which will make it a lot easier for me to scoop. And then I use the back of the ice cream scoop to round out the top. This also helps me see which ones have more, or if there are too many cherries in one. Now these look fairly even to me. I have a few minutes until my oven preheats, so I'm gonna wash my hands and then we'll throw these in the oven. Remember how I said don't forget about this on the stove? So now we have a very thick reduction, but we can save it. I'm gonna put these in the oven for about 20 minutes until the edges are a light golden brown. First, test if this tastes burnt. It is not burnt, it is just really reduced. So we can still use this one. You can start over with a fresh can of cherries, or you can do what I'm about to do. I promise this wasn't scripted, like, I promise. So I have a second can, and this has the same heavy syrup. I'm just gonna pour in a couple tablespoons and then stir it in with a spatula. So now instead of that really thick, like, I don't know, it's not paste, like it was a very thick jam, now it's back to a reduction. And it'll still reduce a little bit because the pan is pretty hot. We need about 4 tablespoons out of this, so I'm gonna add 1 more tablespoon, about. It's fine, it's fine. And this looks to be about the consistency we want. You can also, we used it. Well, let me wash it. You can also test how far reduced this is by pouring it into a measuring cup. So I have just under 1/4 cup, and there were originally 6 ounces. So 1/4 cup is 2 ounces, so I know I still want to add a little bit more. So I have enough to brush onto the cupcakes and for the cherry buttercream. So I'll pour this back in. Now I'll let this cool until I'm ready to put it onto my cupcakes. Now that we have that crisis averted, it's not a crisis, I told you it's easy to fix. I am going to do dishes. This is a little bit different from normal because I have to use this twice, so just know that that's coming. I am just gonna throw all of the dishes in at once. So you're gonna see me wash my KitchenAid mixer twice, even though you've only seen me use it in here once. The dishes on this recipe are a little bit more intensive than my other ones, but I promise these cupcakes are so worth it. I also like to wipe down my work surface because usually I have stray cherry juice or flour or vanilla, egg remnants, anything. I like to start with a clean slate for my next steps. If you are using piping tips regularly, I highly recommend getting a piping tip cleaner. This makes cleaning your piping tips so much easier. It has saved me literally hours when I'm doing dishes. To make the cherry reduction come out of your pan a little bit faster, soak it in some warm water for about 5 minutes. That will water down the reduction so that it simply pours down into the drain. My cupcakes are done. It took about 22 minutes. You can see they're a little full, but I like them this way. If you like yours to be flush with the top of the paper cup, make 14. I physically cannot. I do not even start making my buttercream until these are out of the oven, because if you put cold buttercream on hot cupcake, you get melted buttercream. I don't even let it tempt me. This buttercream is really simple. It is your standard American buttercream. And then of course, I add a bit of a twist. So we do a 2-toned, 2-flavored buttercream that just makes this not your average buttercream. Adding in my softened butter. You can tell it is very soft because it is 100 degrees outside. Thank you. Highly recommend, if you are doing a lot of baking, to buy 2 beaters. That way you can have one for baking and one for your buttercream or icing or whatever you end up using. It saves me so much time and dishes, which that's why I like it, come on. Start my buttercream getting fluffy before I add in any powdered sugar. And then I add in about a cup of powdered sugar at a time. I have had too many clouds of powdered sugar come up and try to suffocate me. Start slow, start by pulsing. Until enough of the sugar is incorporated that you can safely move up. And then my final cup. Once it gets to this point, I add in just a little bit of vanilla. And then I let it whip for a couple of minutes until it gets really light and fluffy. And then while I'm letting this whip, I'm also going to start to brush my reduction onto the cupcakes. For that, I use a tiny little brush, and I simply dip once and then brush on top. this gives the cupcake just a bit extra cherry flavor, and who does not want that in a cherry almond cupcake? I don't find the need to poke these with a toothpick. It absorbs just the same, but if you like poking your cupcakes with toothpicks, by all means go for it. I'm making sure to only brush about 1 brush worth onto it because I want to make sure that I have enough for the buttercream. That's why I go light the first round. And once I've gotten to this stage, the cupcakes have cooled down a bit. They're still warm and the pan is still pretty warm, but they will cool faster if they are out of the hot pan. So I remove the cupcakes from the tin and put them directly onto my cooling rack. We are going to use this bowl. I consolidate dishes, remember? I'm going to scoop out half of my buttercream and put it into this bowl so that I can make my two-toned buttercream. I usually gauge about 1 heaping spoonful, and then I measure again. If I have about a heaping spoonful in this, that's close enough. And then I make my almond first, so that I do not have to clean the spatula in between rounds. And I add in a touch of almond extract, and I mix this straight in the bowl. And then I use my reduction, and I put about a tablespoon in to start. And I can tell that's still too light, so I'm gonna add another tablespoon. Take a spoon and taste to see if it has enough cherry in it. I think that could use more, so I'm gonna add in what's left of this. My clean spoon. Ooh. Yep. So now our buttercream is ready to go. We'll wait for these to cool and then we will pipe. To make the two-tone buttercream, I take a sheet of plastic wrap and lay it directly on my counter. Take my pink buttercream and I lay it directly on top of the plastic wrap before spreading it in an even layer. And then take your white buttercream and set it directly on top, right in the center, and drag it out so that you have a white streak. We just want a distinct contrast of colors. I use a tall glass to fill my piping bag. I'm using a Wilton 2D tip, which is just the typical star tip. Figure out where my opening is, put my tip in, and cut off just a little bit more than I think I'll need to make sure. Okay, that wasn't quite enough. Cut off just a little bit more. Now I have full use of all of the openings. I twirl it to make sure that none of the buttercream is going to spill out. Put that face up into my cup. I can adjust it if I need to with my hand. And then I fold and have a nice shoot ready. Then I'm gonna take the edge of my plastic wrap and I made this a little bit too wide, so we're gonna scoop will be good enough. Then you're gonna roll this just like that and pick it up and transfer it into the bag. We're just gonna, and then I have a two-tone swirl that will be coming out of the star tip. Take my now cooled cupcakes. I like doing a normal swirl tip, but I also think rosettes are beautiful, so I'm gonna do both. For a rosette, we'll start in the center. I'm holding pressure with my left hand here, and I'm starting in the center and just slowly working my way out until I have the entire top of the cupcake filled, covered, and then I just drag the end out. So start in the center at a perpendicular angle, keep going, go all the way around. There you have your rosette. For a typical swirl, start on the outside. It's basically the opposite of a rosette. Start on the outside and work your way in, and then pull away sharply so that you are left with a beautiful tip. And that's how you make cherry almond cupcakes. The full recipe is available on my blog at floralapron.com, along with a bunch of other recipes that I'm sure you'll love. In order to prepare for this video, I made a batch of these cherry almond cupcakes yesterday. I used a name brand can yesterday, and I used a store brand can today. This is the difference in color. Like, there is no contest in this color difference. And before you jump on and say, well, did you also forget about the reduction yesterday? Yeah. If anything, I probably used more of the cherry reduction in this batch than I did from the batch yesterday, and there's still that vibrant of a color change. It still tastes absolutely the same. If you really want that vibrant color, I would recommend spending an extra couple dollars for the name brand canned cherries. Let me know what your results are in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. This is the best part of the video, where I finally get to eat what I have made. Mm. 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 These are so good. There is just the perfect amount of cherry and almond in there. There are multiple layers of cherry flavor in there with that cherry syrup reduction, with the canned cherries and the fresh cherries, and you get a few different textures from those cherries. Every single bite is different because of that cherry almond buttercream. Some bites have more almond, some have more cherry in it. It's truly divine. I have had so much fun today. I hope you enjoyed making these cherry almond cupcakes with me. Again, the full recipe is linked below and at my website, floralapron.com. Thank you so much for watching and blossoming with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.